the big questions today because they must be raised now. Has the Manipur government lost all control over the state? Who will restore the people's trust? Is this the Modi government's biggest security challenge? Is President's rule now an option in Manipur? Joining me now, our special guest. I'm joined in the studio by Kaushik Deka. He heads India Today Northeast. I'm joined by Lieutenant General Konsam Himalay Singh. He's member Consultative Committee Manipur Government on Naga Talks. Colin Gonsalves, Senior Advocate Supreme Court, is appearing in the court representing the Manipur Tribal Forum. Hoinu Hoysel is an independent journalist and a proud native of Manipur and India. And Rajat Sethi is a former political advisor to the Chief Minister of Manipur. I appreciate each and every one of you joining me on the show today. I want to come to you, Hoinu, first. As a journalist who's tracked this story for a long time of Manipur, when you see this destruction, the death taking place, are you losing hope?
Rajdeep, thank you, first of all, for having me. Hope, of course, if we don't have hope, we wouldn't be here at all. But when I look at it, I don't think in all the years that I've seen the violence, all through my years of, growing up and seeing the violence, I don't think I've never seen a magnitude, a violence of this magnitude. So it is a little difficult to say that we have, there is definitely hope, but it's difficult to understand how long is it going to take for people to bounce back. The magnitude of violence and the number of lives lost and the number of people who are displaced, students whose education have suddenly come to a halt. It has touched every aspect of life for everybody. So it is difficult to really understand how are we going to bounce back. So the question now really is, how do we rebuild? How do we bounce back? How do we restore? How do we deal with the trust deficit which is going on right now?
Is that what it is at the core, according to you, a trust deficit? That Kukis have lost faith in Meiteis and Meiteis have lost faith in Kukis? Is that at the heart of this?
Well, trust, we have, I would have imagined that when the first incident broke out on the 3rd of May, I would have imagined that if we had a functioning government, I wondered if something was done at that point of time, would it escalate if I look back, if we look back and reflect. The trust deficit, I think it's on every aspect. I think there is a mutual distrust at the moment, and of course, without denying, I'm sure people are also a little apprehensive about what is the state doing, and more importantly, what is the center doing. We are almost, we've crossed over a month now, and there isn't any sign of things cooling down. So it is, I would like to ask, where are we headed right now? And
well,
who is,
let me ask that question.
Isn't the country watching? Isn't the people in the authority watching?
I've kept the politicians out of this because politicians can polarize any debate, and this is not a time for polarization but for solutions. General Konsam Himalay Singh, should the Indian state, the government of Narendra Modi at the center and the state government of Biren Singh now break, in some way be seen to be more proactive? Amit Shah ji spent 3 days there, but many believe it was too little too late. He went 5 weeks after the violence broke out. So what's the solution? Is President's rule a solution? What's the solution?
Thank you very much for the invitation. Rajdeep, the first thing I would like to say is that the solution is a very, very distant kind of a dream right now. We have to think about the short and the long-term solutions. So I would say that I'll cover the long-term solutions because what we are facing today is a legacy of last 75 years or even more than that. And there have been a continuous, faulty narratives, faulty laws, and also very significant divide amongst the people, particularly in Manipur and in Northeast India in general.
No, but sir, can I stop you for a moment to say that 18 months ago when elections were held, or 12 months ago, the situation was peaceful. It appeared even Armed Forces Special Powers Act was being lifted from Manipur. There was hope. What has suddenly changed in the last 12 months?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I would say that things were under the surface. They were divided already, building up for number of years, in fact decades. And what has actually happened in the last 40 days or so is a result of sudden activities, and also people talk about various issues like scheduled tribe demand, then these illegal immigrants and all that. These are actually, I think, they are not the real reason. They might have been.
So what's the real reason? What, according to you, is the real reason?
I mean, people are talking about Hindu, Christian. No, nothing. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with even a tribal, non-tribal narrative. What I would say, it is about the reason is the legacy of the past, as I said, which we have not, I will blame most of the governance issue, and also various laws and various customary laws which are at odds with the Indian Constitution, or even with the traditional laws of various cultures of the people there. We have 36 communities or 36 tribes there. So the biggest problem I see there is because of the situation there, that we have got a porous border. There have been histories of neighbors, like unstable neighborhood. We have history of China, and then is Pakistan having supported so many insurgent groups. So we are living in an environment where it was very difficult for any governance to.
So you're saying this is a governance challenge, and it takes the slightest trigger. In a sense, states like Manipur sit on a volcano. Colin Gonsalves, in this instance, the trigger, many believe, was that High Court verdict, Manipur High Court verdict in the month of April, that suggested that the Meitei community also be given tribal status. Immediately, that seemed to open up the fault lines between the Kukis, and I'll put up a graphic to show the reasons why these fault lines have existed. The Meiteis have been politically influential, dominated Imphal Valley. Now there was a fear they could spread to the hill areas, to the tribal pockets of Manipur. Do you believe that was the trigger, in a sense, that has sparked off these ethnic fault lines, the legacy issue that General spoke about just now?
Not at all, Rajdeep. I believe it was only the excuse. The real reason is that both the central government and the state government have a vested interest in promoting two communal organizations, and the gentleman before me gave their names, the Aramba and the Meitei Lupun, which have sophisticated weapons and are trained and are protected by the Home Ministry at the center and the Chief Minister at the state to do genocide against the Kukis. Why are they doing genocide? And why have 110 Kukis out of 130 persons killed? 110 Kukis are killed as part of a genocidal plan.
No, 1 minute.
Why?
You've used the word genocide thrice. It's a word we should use carefully. With due regard, Colin, Meiteis have also died, Kukis have also died. The truth of the matter is both communities have suffered.
No, that's a wrong narrative, Rajdeep. In the media, generally a wrong narrative. If you find out how many Meiteis have died, you'll find the number hinging around 25. And the Kukis, we have the whole list, is 110. It's a one-sided genocidal attack, and I'm repeating it because the Kukis are dying. And you mentioned clash between militant and militant. The Kukis who have died are not militant group Kukis. They're civilian Kukis who have been killed. It's not a clash between Meiteis and Kukis.
3 days ago, Colin Gonsalves, 3 days ago, 8 Meiteis who were seeking refuge in a church were killed. Now,
Correct.
the Kukis are accusing them of having come to torch their villages.
Correct.
Either
Shall
way,
I tell you what happened?
The point I'm making is that to use the word genocide may be a little
I'll
unfair,
tell you what
because what
happened.
is
It's
happening
important
is
that
actually you've got one group possibly with state patronage. No one denies that. But we've got to accept that in this kind of violence, both communities have suffered. I just showed you the story of a Meitei woman who's had to run away. A house was burned down.
No, Rajdeep, this is not a correct narrative. This is not a correct narrative. It seems like an apparently neutral and fair narrative, but it's not a correct narrative. Now, for example, what happened a couple of days ago? You had these communal groups go into their village. They go into a Kuki village, they start attacking the villagers, and in the night they go to a church, they slaughter a pig, and they are rejoicing and celebrating in their killings. And that's when the counter-attack took place and they were killed. Of course, this is the first time that Maitais have been killed at this level. Otherwise, the total killing of Maitais is 20-25. As opposed to 110.
I ask you
this
again,
neutral kind
do you
of thing,
accept,
that
do you accept
clash
that,
and
do you accept that
Yes.
it was that these were simmering tensions that have flared up? That, as the general was saying, these are legacy issues or not? Meiteis and
I
Kukis
don't
have
agree.
lived together in
No,
Churatanpur,
Rajdeep, this
in
was-
Imphal.
Correct, and correct, absolutely correct. It is not a tension which reaches a boiling point. It is two groups sponsored by the state, determined to clear the Kukis from the land in the hills. And why? Because the Netherlands government has come out with a report saying these hills are rich with petroleum, cobalt and other minerals. We must capture these hills because this is the future of Manipur.
Okay.
If we exploit and allow exploration, which the contracts are now being given, then that whole area will become very rich.
Okay.
It's a pre-planned attack.
Okay, you've made your
Led
point.
by the Chief
I
Minister
want,
and the Home Minister
you-
at the center, and I expect,
go
I
ahead.
expect in the next few weeks, when the numbers go from 110 to 210, Rajdeep, you will accept that it is genocide. It will happen. You watch.
Rajat Sethi,
They're
I want
determined to
you
clear
to
the
respond,
Kukis from the
because
land.
one criticism that is there is that the state has been seen to patronize one community, that Meitei groups like the Meitei Lipun have been allowed a relatively free hand. The amount of arms that have been allowed to be stolen from police stations leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Do you accept that the government there has lost control over the situation? A union minister's house is torched?
Well, I would not want to comment on deeply partisan perspectives which were, shared by the previous panelist. It does no good. But to your point, I think we've debated it ad nauseum that, it was a breakdown of disciplined forces, some of the security forces who sacrificed their disciplinary norms and gave out willingly, or the arms were snatched, more on communal lines, and that is where a lot of Meitei population, which was largely unarmed, took this in their own hands, and certain groups, certain radical elements decided to defend their own villages when the attacks which were started in Churachandpur, as we all know. It's unfortunate. I think the Honorable Home Minister has been pretty clear that in order to lay out the roadmap for peace, it can only start when both the Meitei communities who have picked up arms give up arms, return from wherever they have taken, as well as all the Kuki insurgent groups who were either under the Sioux arrangements get back to the camps, register their arms, or people who have taken up arms get arrested, etc. So ultimately, any kind of a peace can only and only begin when the common people give up arms.
But the Chief
wielding
Minister,
weapons
but Rajat Sethi, the general belief is the government has been missing in action. As I said, the Home Minister went to Manipur in end of May. For the first half of May, he was busy in Karnataka elections. The Chief Minister is increasingly under pressure. Today, a Union Minister has gone on record saying Manipur has gone out of control. Do you believe President's rule is a solution? Should the Chief Minister at least offer to step down, since he is now seen as the hate figure, particularly for the Kukis, even though he may be a hero for the Meiteis?
Well, I don't think things operate like this. You've talked about the Honorable Home Minister, and let me tell you, because I'm privy to some of the government efforts that are going on. He has been every other day. He has been conducting conferences, video conferences with the unified command on the ground. He's been ensuring that he's on top of things. The only thing is that after every such interaction, he doesn't come out and do a press conference to update everybody out there. He's doing his job. He's not publicizing it on a daily basis, but he was there. I can also tell you, even after the current attack that happened on the Meitei people who were resting inside the church, he was the first one to call up, had a meeting with the unified command and ensure that things and law and order fall in place again.
But it hasn't. But it hasn't. There must come a time. There must come a time when there must be an acknowledgement at least of the scale of the crisis and an appeal for peace and harmony. Where are these appeals? Should there be greater public appeal? Should more ministers or even an all-party delegation go to Manipur and provide a healing touch, Rajat? Or do you believe that can only happen later?
Well, let that ground be created. Today, the Honorable Governor of the state went into some of the camps to understand the situation from the ground zero, and there were attacks from the militant groups. That very time when she was doing a recce on the ground and trying to understand. So please understand that if all party delegation wants to go there, they're free to go, but let the basic common ground for peace be created in that state. It's a problem wherein unprecedented amount of security has been deployed, central armed forces have been deployed, and they can't go out on a rampage shooting at people. They need to also negotiate every inch of ground, every inch of land that they are trying to dominate on. So it's a constant negotiation. I mean, armed forces will come under a lot of flack if there is any shootout that happens between the armed forces and common people who, for example, are blockading the highway. They can't do that. So there has to be a responsible approach even from the army.
Okay.
So that is one. They need to create some level of peace on the ground before all party delegation wants to come in and do their politics. They're happy to. I mean, they'll be happy to.
The fact
this is perhaps not the right time.
Okay. Kaushik Deka, you're hearing these various voices. India Today Northeast brought out also a report which suggested that Kuki militant groups claiming that Himanta Biswa Sarma and Ram Madhav had patronized some of these groups for the 2017-22 elections. You've been tracking this area. It is a maze at the moment. When the Congress was in power, they also struggled. Armed Forces Special Powers Act was there. Militant groups were operating. Then peace returned. What do you believe that these are fault lines that could spread to other parts, including neighboring Mizoram? Should we be very worried, border area of the country, this kind of ethnic violence taking place?
I don't think it will spread immediately, but the sad part is that this fault line means, as Hoinu had mentioned, that this is something even people in Manipur, they haven't watched earlier, they haven't seen such situations earlier. Because as a very senior officer in Indian Army, he told me that this trust has completely broken down, and they don't believe that there would be a repair anytime soon.
But suddenly, why should the trust suddenly break? That's the point. 1 year ago, elections were held relatively peaceful. Now suddenly, the two communities cannot coexist?
As several guests have pointed out, there are several factors. Some are historical, some are current, from the Meitei-Kuki divide, hill and plain divide, to the recent drive against poppy cultivation.
So it's about land rights, poppy cultivation, encroachments.
In Northeast, if you see all the ethnic clashes, you will see that the primary factor is land, the scarcity of land and resources. Obviously, all the northeastern states are very poor. So there is always a pressure on resources, and because of that, those clashes happen. Mainly, they can be defined by different ways, in a sense that this is ethnic, this is communal, this is religious. But at the root of all those clashes are land. Here also, as you know, that the pressure on Meitei land, Imphal Valley, and the pressure also on Kuki areas, how the foothills have become the main playground of this violence. So there are many other factors. Some are current, some are historical.
What according to you is the solution? What do you think?
The solution is the goodwill of the politicians. Why it's happening? It's because of the politics. Have you seen anywhere in India that 4,000 arms, 4,000 weapons have been looted? they haven't been looted. It's an open secret that it has been facilitated. And the problem now, Manipur, is that there is nobody Manipuri. Everybody is either Meitei or Kuki. In the administration, there is a sharp divide between Meiteis and Kukis, and that's actually creating the problem. Despite the fact that Union Home Minister is monitoring the situation, look at it, there are armed forces, there is APSA in many areas, and the state government, union government, and they are of the same party. So despite all these things coming together, they haven't been able to control. So look at this, the Union Home Minister or the Prime Minister, they haven't been able to protect the house of one of their colleagues, a central minister, and another colleague in the state ministry. So this is something that has been facilitated even by the administration. You will see many victims or many eyewitnesses have said that both forces, state forces or the central forces, they have stood there. They have only suggested go, run. They are not protecting.
Why not? Why not?
Why not? That's the question. That's the question. This divide, that communal or ethnic, whatever you call it, that divide is so complete and running deep in the administration.
So you're saying even the administration is divided on these strong...
Administration is divided. That's why it has continued for more than a month. Otherwise, it could have been controlled. I said that there are three forces together: the state administration, the central government, and the armed forces. And despite that fact, it's a small state. It's not a big state. And despite that fact, they haven't been able to control it because they have let arms float in the state.
General Konsam Himalaya is saying, listening to what Kaushik is saying, this is very scary. The amount of arms that are floating around, the fact that, as he says, state administration is also getting divided on ethnic lines. These are very scary, indicators for a state which is a border state of this country. What is the solution according to you? What's the solution?
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But before that, I'd like to comment on that, this ethnic cleansing or this kind of a comment. I think that should be little deliberate when we talk about ethnic cleansing. That is the first point,
So what's the solution? Okay, we say it's not, as I said, we will for now hold our horses on that, but what's the solution? We're in our final round. What is your solution?
Okay, number one is establish the rule of law. How? The military and the police have to calibrate their use of force. The reason why they cannot use force randomly is that when when things are going wrong, it is the people, civilians, armed and unarmed, mostly unarmed, they're in terms of hundreds and thousands. So the military cannot really, control with the use of force. That is one of the reasons that. But the solution that you are talking, I would strongly suggest that the political outreach is one of the main issue here. The politicians have to come together by force or otherwise.
So you're saying there has to be your point is taken. You're saying political outreach. There is only so much that the military can do and they're trying their very best. What you really need is a political outreach. But the politicians also sadly are divided. But Hoinu, what is your solution? What do you think at a human level? Do you think Manipur could do with a healing touch? Do you think that people, Hoinu, have the confidence in their politicians at the moment? Hoinu, do you think that a healing touch can be provided? Who will provide the healing touch?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Is that for me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
What's the solution you want?
The healing touch will come, The healing touch will come from different factors, Rajdeep. First of all, on the 4th of June, a commission of inquiry was formed, and on the 10th, a peace committee was formed. I want to understand, why did it derail? Did we even pause to reflect why do this? Why didn't they take off? Why are there so much of opposition from the civil society, from both sides? What could be the reason? Do we even pause to reflect? We just said people have rejected the peace committee. Shouldn't we pause and reflect what are the reasons why people are against it or opposed it? So I think we are not really able to find solutions with an intent to really solve it. So we need to really go back to see who are the stakeholders, who are the people who should be in the peace committee, how should we bring them on board, so that, because it's everybody's problem now, so we cannot just put aside people who really matter in the context of Manipur. And so we need to find what is the real solution by involving people, the stakeholders. We need to
So from all
involve
communities, you would
leaders
like
from the church, from the
probably
community.
interfaith, all community dialogue, bringing all communities together, stakeholders who include leaders of community. Colin Gonzalez, offer a solution. Do you see a solution? What would be a solution?
See, the solution is simple, and it will stop in a day. You arrest the Arambai, you arrest the Maitai Lupun, 100 cookies killed, not a single FIR filed. Arrest that gentleman of the Maitai Lupun who said on Karan Thapar's program, he said we will annihilate them. Arrest them. You arrest them today, the violence will stop tomorrow. If you have the courage to do that, to stop these persons who are killing, identify, we know who they are. We've got photographs of them with automatic weapons. They come on television programs saying we will kill them, we will annihilate them. Arrest them today, the killings will stop from tomorrow. That's the solution. Cliches, Rajdeep, we live in the world of cliches, old-fashioned cliches.
You know, Rajat Sethi, what is the solution? Apart from the law and order issue, should the government break its silence? Today the opposition is questioning the Prime Minister. Where is the Prime Minister? Why doesn't he speak up? Do you believe that will resolve it? Can an outreach, the political outreach which was just spoken about by General, is that possible? Or does the law and order situation have to come under control before a political outreach takes place? Should the Chief Minister be replaced?
I think all of these questions, would be asked at the right time. But right now, containing the problem of Manipur within Manipur, not ensuring that any external, pressure coming in either from Myanmar or from Bangladesh. We are seeing all kinds of reports now that all kinds of sleeper cells are getting activated because it's a situation which attracts, foreign players who are inimical to India's peace. We have to ensure that no such thing happens and the problem is well contained. Second, at least a 5-day to 10-day peace period is important for political negotiations to start. For that 5-day period to 10-day period is what the Honorable Home Minister has been pleading and requesting before the communities, that everybody has to give up violence on both the sides. Once they do that, allow things to settle. One good thing that I wanted to share is that from the 21st of June, the schools are opening. So I hope that this exercise, of children going to school is done in a peaceful way. Gradually the communities go back to a level of normalcy wherein the political process can start. Please allow space for the political process.
Okay, 30 seconds, Kaushik. What do you see is the road ahead? And this is not just Manipur. All the northeast states, and you track them closely, all have these fault lines.
30 seconds is too less, but
I know.
Nevertheless, there are a few points both governments need to do. First is disarm everyone. The Northeast has a serious problem of arms smuggling, and now they have started stealing or facilitating the stealth. Disarm everyone, take control of not control, but serious drive should happen against drug trafficking, because these two things, arms and drugs, are actually problems of the Northeast, not only in Manipur but in other parts also, and because of the control over these two businesses, many violences happen. These two things need to be controlled at the very beginning, and then the dialogue should start. And also this external aggression, not aggression but infiltration that happened from various countries, that should also be tackled.
Okay, that's the long-term objective. Meanwhile, in the short term, the fact is thousands have been displaced from their own homes. I thank my panelists.